Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for another one. So today we're going to be talking about zero waste things that Leena Norms did not like when she tried out a zero waste lifestyle or tried to make her London flat a little bit more sustainable. If you've no idea what I'm talking about, last year we created a video together where we went around her flat to see what was sustainable, what could be changed, and how she can make just a few more sustainable options. I will leave the link to her video down below if you want to check that out. And she also, because she only came out with it this year, she had a follow-up 1 year later of the things that she actually implemented. So today we're going to be talking through some of the things that she loved, hated, and also a lot of climate books that she would recommend and are on her list to be read as well. If you don't know who Leena Norms is, she is a wonderful content creator talking about things that to do with your 20s, talking about lies we're told in our 20s about a specific topic. She talks about climate change and is just trying to add a bit of fun and joy and silliness to the world. So without further ado, let's go and give her a call. Hi Leena, thank you so much for joining me for this video. I'm very, very, very excited. For those of you who don't know who Leena is, will you just give people a quick kind of rundown of what you're about and what you're doing here on this platform?
This platform and this weird spinning planet. Hello, my name's Leena. I am a poet, a writer, a YouTuber. I used to work in the book publishing industry, so a lot of my old videos are all about books, and I still do a lot of book content. Probably the whole way through my life, but particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, I've really started panicking about the planet. So I have been using some of my videos to talk about that, and I have a series on my channel called Positive Panic, where we try and panic positively about the planet, which has been really fun. And yeah, that's kind of who I am, I think. Who am I really? Who can say?
Well, that's one of the things I love about your videos is I will come to them and be like, I think I'm this kind of person, and then I'll watch it and I'll be like, oh my god, I am not that person anymore. Literally 35 minutes later and I am a whole new person.
Deconstruction stop. All aboard.
Exactly. So I want this video at the beginning to kind of be about the zero waste swaps that you tried as someone coming to it as a positive panicker, trying to be more environmentally friendly. But perhaps maybe we could start with the things that you hated that you tried, or the things that you really didn't like when it comes to zero waste swaps, or what didn't work for you.
What didn't work for me? So I did have an odd box. I think we talked about that in the video. And I am just not a proficient cook. I can't just I'm not somebody who can open a fridge and see what we've got and then invent what's going to happen. So I ended up letting a lot of fruit and vegetables rot. And I realised that even though in an odd box, if you don't know, an odd box is rescued wonky vegetables. And they now do it all over the country. I thought it was just London, but now it's all over the country. And it's really cool, but I'm not proficient enough a cook to cook stuff before it goes off, which is fine. I accepted that about myself. It's a skill that I don't yet have, and I think I could implement that in the future. And I've also realised that near me there's a local version that they do smaller boxes and customizable ones. So again, it's nice. You can learn about a brand like that everybody can talk about, but then if you research something that's equivalent and local, it might be more customizable and might suit you a little bit more. So I'm looking into that. One of the swaps I don't think we talked about in the video, but I'm just always on the hunt for some kind of zero waste mascara, but I just don't see it in our futures. If I was going to assign some scientists to work stuff out, I'd be first, can you just sort out all of women's reproductive medicine, please? And then after that, could you work out how to make a non-plastic, non-toxic mascara? Because the science must be there. I have an English degree, I don't know. But I feel it seems like a simple solution, but nobody's come up with it.
No, nobody has. Honestly, zero waste makeup is one of the things that is a pain point for a lot of people because they've tried it, and I personally haven't found a single zero waste sort of eye makeup thing in terms of eyeliner or mascara that doesn't just run down my face and make me look like a clown by the end of it, or it's a bit itchy. Yeah, no, I agree.
They're
I agree.
Suspicious. But it's something that I honestly when I'm just we talked about things that genuinely I use up, enjoy, genuinely light up my life. I'm sorry, but mascara is one of them. Maybe that makes me a simpleton. But I just know there's so many things that I'm I can do without that. I can do without concealer. I don't really care. But mascara just brings joy, and that's okay. That's what I've realised.
Mascara does bring joy, and I really hope that there come more channels which are dedicated specifically to zero waste beauty, so that they can do all the research for us, and then we can like have a look, because it is one of those things which is painful if you're buying something trying to be more sustainable and then it doesn't work for you.
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
really shit.
And it's also something that's going near your eyes, so I don't want to experiment too much, because again, like when we talk about health, I'm like, there's some things like you talk about with toothpaste where you were like, I'm just going to use what my dentist wants me to use because the stakes are quite high. I would like to have my eyesight, so...
I agree, and I remember when I first looked into the whole zero waste movement, this woman called Bear Johnson, she made her own mascara, and I was thinking, wow, what a revolutionary thing. And then I tried it, and I just thought, this is terrible. Like, this is awful. How do you get away with this? But also, I think it can take the joy out of what beauty can do as an expression. Like you said, you love mascara. I love mascara, and I don't wear it every day, but when I go out, I want to, you know, put my mascara on and I want to look really good. I don't want to have like this incredibly natural look that basically has nothing there.
Yeah, totally. It's what sparks joy. And I think as well we were saying, like, I buy mascara maybe every 6 months. I buy plastic yogurt pots every bloody week. You know, it's stuff like that that's actually like, if I'm gonna... where I'm going to focus my worry and my panic, like, it shouldn't be on mascara. It should probably be on the stuff that I'm buying way more frequently. So I've definitely been trying to work that out.
Oh, I quite agree. What else have you found that you weren't particularly a fan of?
Oh, a lot of things I am a fan of, I think. I definitely had to find the right moon cup for me. I realised there were, like, not all menstrual cups are created equal.
No, they are not.
The moon cup one was really thick, and it wouldn't, like, to spare you all the details, it wouldn't quite fit in. It would always pop out again. Like, you know, when you were in the 90s and you had one of those, like, popper things in the magazines where you'd turn, it's like a little, like, rubber circle, and you turn it inside out and then it would pop up.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like that was happening inside my vagina. And I was like, we can't go on. This can't happen. But I do have a Diva cup now, and it's way more foldable and like made of like a slightly thinner plastic. So there's like really weird details there, aren't there? That it's just like, how would you know? Like, how would you? And it's worth like not giving up on a category just because you've tried one brand and it hasn't worked. So there's definitely been a journey with that as well, I think. But to be fair, a lot of the zero waste things I've tried have worked really well.
That's true, and I think that actually one thing that doesn't get talked about enough is what you just said, like, don't give up on a category just because one thing doesn't work for you. Like, I tried the Moon Cup, and the Moon Cup works for so many of my friends who've had children, but for me it did not work at all, so then I tried different ones, and I found with the Lunette Cup and the Organic Cup that they are much softer, as you said, more, you know, malleable to just get it up there in the right place, let it sit nicely, but also... there are so many conversations, like, this is also where it comes back to the conversation around why we're uncomfortable talking about our vaginas and things like how long your like vaginal canal is, for example, because that makes a big difference whether you want to have a stem or not. I bet loads of people are like, oh god, why are they talking so much about vagina?
it needs to be said.
Well, exactly, because you don't want people trying it and then it being uncomfortable or feeling guilty about not being able to use it. And yeah, so I totally agree on the category thing for sure. Because also when it comes to zero waste toothpaste, I know that I hate it and will never use it. But there are lots of people who found specific ones that work for them and ones that have fluoride and all of that kind of stuff. So
yeah, no, I think it's more about looking en masse at like everything that you own and then trying to like cut down on some things rather than looking at every single category and being like, I have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, I need to fix this thing. Like, it's more about, in general, has your bathroom improved rather than like, has your toothpaste improved?
Yeah, that's true. All right, maybe let's move on to the positive things.
Yeah.
Because obviously you said like a lot of things have actually worked for you and you've clearly implemented. So what are some of those things?
So the thing that I was thinking about this because there's loads of, I could say like, you know, I've got a refillable deodorant now that I really, really like from Wild. There's loads of things like that have worked really well for me. But honestly, the ones that brought me the most relief, like one of them was moving to Triodos, like the ethical bank. I don't know why, but that obviously was something that was stressing me out, because I know I was with a particularly bad bank before. So it just on a very small low level angered me every day when I took out my card, and I don't know why. And I think also just because it's money, like it's something that I know has a bigger impact than a lot of other things. So even though that actually hasn't really had like big net impact on me, in fact I pay £3 a month to do it, I think that's the one that I'm most relieved that I did, and took me the longest to get round to doing. Classic. But that one. And then also, if I was going to be honest, changing to Octopus Energy, which is something that you advised me to do in my video, and then I did, is really great. And also, they're not lying when they say if you refer a friend they give you £50, because they do. So I've had that loads of times, and now I've had loads of free electricity. So I like them because they're easy to use, and like the online system is really, really simple and clear, and also they're really good. And it's one of the biggest ways that I know, like, you can make your home, like one of the ways you can control your home environment being more sustainable if you're a renter. But also they genuinely give you £50 if you refer a friend, and they give the friend £50. So get on it, I'd say.
I mean, how do they make money? That's what I want to know. That's so good. And I totally agree with the whole, the bigger impact, because I changed my bank, and when I opened my pension, I specifically made sure I went for like an ethical pension. Annoyingly, because I'm moving to the US, I've had to move my pension, but I've moved it to one where, like, I know, I can invest everything myself, so I can specifically choose socially responsible ones. Okay. Which is a minefield. Won't tell you that. But it does give you a lot more peace of mind. Like, once I realised that my money was being invested in like fossil fuels, arms, gambling, like all of these different things, and also I've read loads of articles about how my money's probably been invested into like the meat industry. And as someone who is a vegan, you know, that's not ideal for me. So yeah, it's one of those things that people don't realise makes a massive difference, and is actually not that hard. Yeah, really easy. And I also think, like, it's weird because I used to have, and maybe I'm not going to blame Harry Potter for this, but like I definitely had a concept of banking from Gringotts, where they go and like they've got like a little chamber and they open it and they put whatever they want in it, and then they can come back and get it later. And it was only much later in my life that I realised that's not how banks work. You shut the door and then they're like messing with your money and throwing it over here and throwing it over there. And I'm like, oh my God. I also didn't realise that, because it's never something, again, like financial literacy is nothing, we're never taught this at school. Or unless your family is a particularly financially literate family, it's rare, because also money is awkward to talk about, so people don't tend to talk about it. Like, the difference is my dad, because he's retired recently, oh my goodness, does he talk about his pension on and on and on. So like that's why I know a lot about pensions now, and then go into my own research. That's his hobby now. But it's his hobby, and also to tell me about pensions is his hobby. Sure. But for my boyfriend, for example, he never talks about money with his parents. Ever. So everything that he knows is stuff that he's learned himself. And so how are we supposed to know that, you know, our banks aren't really Gringotts? Yeah. And that our money's not sitting there in paper cash, just in, you know. It almost makes me want to, like, I wouldn't do this because I'm pretty sure I'd get picked up for it. Like, go outside some school gates and give out leaflets being like, did you know that banks aren't like Gringotts? Have one of these. Make sure that you They probably tell me to scarper. But you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't know why it isn't taught in schools. You're right. And I hope that it is in the future. I think this is actually quite a nice segue. Well, not the marriage thing, but talking about big impacts. Because a lot of people on my channel always ask me for book recommendations about climate change. And what kind of climate books have you read that you would recommend? Oh my God. People? So I have props. There was a kind of thriller one that I've just read. And it's called Once There Are Wolves, and it's about it's really like kind of, it's got mystery, it's got murder, it's got all of that, but it's actually about an Aussie scientist that moves to Scotland to help re-wild wolves into Scotland. It's something that they've done in the US and they've done a little bit in Canada, and it's worked. They haven't actually done it in Scotland, but this is kind of set in an alternative universe where they do try and do it in Scotland because they're trying to pass the legislation at the moment, and it's all about
her trying to talk to the villagers in the small town where they're doing it and explain why wolves are actually a really key part of the ecosystem. And one of the reasons that the UK ecosystem is breaking down is that we don't have these big predators. They're called like key factors in like an ecosystem. They're really, really important, but we've kind of got rid of them in the UK because of the idea of agriculture and how important it is, and they can't be eating our sheep because sheep are important, and also kind of because of this like mythology of wolves being at your door, Little Red Riding Hood, wolves are dangerous, wolves kill humans, which like they actually don't. That is a myth. They don't kill humans. Mind blown. Gringotts isn't real. Wolves don't kill humans. What else? Do I have any truths? So that's really good, and because it's like you do accidentally learn about some of the science behind wolves, but not in a way that feels schooly. It's kind of like an accident because it's also like a big mystery, and basically there's a murder in the town and it's been set up so it looks like a wolf has done it, and she knows that a wolf hasn't done it, so she needs to find out who the wolf is, otherwise her funding will get pulled. Anyway, as you can tell, I really like that book.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I mean, I have heard about some rewilding of wolves in the US, and it's amazing how it impacts the entire ecosystem of the area.
Yeah.
Like, deer come back and rabbits come back and birds come back because the sort of system, the food chain has been righted, as it were.
One of the reasons, I'm not very good at this, I'm still learning about it. One of the reasons is that that wolves and big predators will move other kinds of animals on so they can graze evenly over a big plain of land. Whereas if they don't have predators, they'll only graze in one spot, and then like they'll ruin that spot of the land and not be grazing on the rest of it. So it's kind of like part of that. It's just like, oh, obviously they would need predators because it's the natural way that like the ecosystem keeps everything moving, which blew my mind. We're the Weather is the book that I always go on about, by Jonathan Safran Foer. Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast. It's the reason I finally gave up meat, even though I kind of knew a lot of the reasons already, but I didn't. You know when you like you know something but you don't believe it, like as in like I knew that maybe eating meat wasn't a good idea, but I didn't believe it until I read this book, which sounds stupid, but it's more of the socio-political like reasons why we're so attached to meat, and about how like actually instead of a small amount of the population becoming vegan and then everybody else ostracizing them / some of the vegans like telling people off, if everybody ate vegan just for breakfast or just for breakfast and lunch, because dinner is such a sacred part of a lot of our cultures, there's stuff like that. It's just really beautiful, and it's all like a kind of about like what we believe about humanity and why it's worth saving as well. So I love that.
Okay, that sounds like a good one. I haven't even read that one. Maybe I'll put that on my list too.
Really, and also like Jonathan Safran Foer is a fiction writer, so it's written bloody beautifully, because sometimes, no offense to the scientists, they know their stuff, but like, can they write a book? Nah, it's not.
Yeah, agree.
It's got to be enjoyable. Like the revolution has to be fun. So that's just beautiful. And then also like, this isn't necessarily a climate book, but it does talk about it. It's called Factfulness by Rosling, and it's all about how a lot of we have a really bad skewed idea of like how the world is and how to change it because of the way news is reported and the way we have a very like small literacy around statistics, so we don't know the questions to ask, like what facts are absent when you hear a statistic. And he talks about how the climate is one of the only ways that humanity hasn't been improving in the last like 2,000 years, like in all other aspects like poverty, equality, women, everything. The world has been vastly improving at incredible rates, but it's not news because it happens gradually. So yeah, anyway, that's really good as well.
That's actually been sitting on my dad's desk for like ages. So I think maybe finally I'll pick it up. Yeah,
it's really fun. It's got graphs that I don't hate. So yeah, it's good. And then I also have some TBR ones if you want to know, but I don't want to keep rabbiting on you. Like,
no. People always ask me for books and I don't deliver, and you're such a bookworm that I feel like you've got lots of good recommendations.
This is the thing, I feel like I do have a lot of them, but then I also have, basically I didn't do it in a considered way, so I just like took the stuff that was served to me or sent to me or suggested to me, and I realised that basically I've only been reading books by men.
Oh, cool, such is life.
I know, you just turn around and then you start listening to them and you're like, hang on a second. So they're all good books, you know, like The Overstory by Richard Powers is incredible. The one that I read recently by a woman is called A Guide to Eco-Anxiety by Anishka. and it's really incredible. And it goes into like all of the nitty gritty detail, like should I have a child? Should I buy a car? And it's very balanced. But also they're by white people. So these are my TBR to try and fix that, because I'm not perfect at this. But The World We Once Lived In is a book that is part of like, I don't know if you've seen, but Penguin have just released these shorts that are like green shorts. So I picked this one up. So she's an activist and founder of the Green Belt movement. So it's all about like trees in Kenya, that kind of thing. I'm going to read it. I'm excited. And then also, do you follow Aja Barber?
Do I follow her? I bumped into her the other day, actually.
So her book's just come out. This is supposed to come out tomorrow, but I found it in my Waterstones yesterday. It's called Consumed: The Need for Collective Change, Colonialism, Climate Change and Consumerism. So she talks a lot about about greenwashing, like race and fashion and how that intersects, and I'm really excited about that because it just came out. So yeah, but I'm not perfect, definitely. And I think if you just take what people serve you, then you'll probably just get white men.
When you do, and you know what, social media has a lot of negatives, but there are so many positives in the sense that when I started reading a lot, I would specifically read and diversify who I was following in terms of bookstagrammers or book grammar people, and suddenly you get all these recommendations and you're like, wow, okay, I really should have been following a much wider array of people before.
Yeah.
And then you read all these books and you just think, I am more of a round human being.
Yeah, exactly. It's this thing that I think sometimes the right misunderstands, where they're like, are you saying that all white men are lying? And I'm like, no. Like I've said, like these kind of books, incredible. Like I couldn't live without them. I think they're completely correct, but they're not the whole story. And it is fair as a reader to be like, thank you for telling me that. I'm just going to go and check that with the rest of the population. Do you know what I mean? Like, sorry, mate, I'm just going to go over here and corroborate and fill in the rest of the blanks, because there's so much that they don't talk about, which is totally fine. But you've got to have a square meal with all of the components in it.
Well, exactly, and it's not us saying that their opinion or their thoughts aren't relevant or whatever. It's saying they can only write from their perspective because that's their lived experience.
Yeah.
So it would be wrong for us to just take that as gospel and not look at, the way that people who maybe live on the front lines of climate change are experiencing it, or people who live in, island countries where our plastic waste turns up on their shores. Like, that's going to be a very different perspective than... Who's the guy who wrote Uninhabitable Earth?
David Foster
I think he lives in...
Wallace. No. David.
Yes,
it's a David. I always laugh when it's like, it's one of the disciples. Is it Matthew, Mark, Luke or John? Like, if it's like a biblical name, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I think he's a David. I mean, he lives in New York, and he basically, even though his book was, I think, quite good, he basically was like, I'm going to be fine, and my children are going to be fine because this is where I live.
I didn't get to that part.
Wow.
I only read half of that book because it scared me too much. So I should probably get back to the second half. But yeah, it's not always encouraging, is it?
It's not. No, it's not. But that's why diversifying your reading list is one of the biggest things that I've made a change for and been just the best.
And I think sometimes, also I'm just realising that some of the books that I'm looking for are not yet available. Like, do you know what I mean? Like the Consumed book was one that I was looking for a while, something that had colonialism and climate change in it and was focused on like clothes and shopping, and I couldn't find it. And then I was like, oh, it is coming. Aja's writing it, but like it's not out yet. There's so much stuff that's still to be published. So I think sometimes if you can't find it in your reading, finding it in your podcasts and your social media and your like online articles is totally fine. Sometimes we focus on like getting that, like reading. I have a goal of reading 100 books a year, so sometimes I'm biased to like reading a book because then I'm like, it also counts towards my challenge. But then sometimes when like publishing's a little bit skewed, it means that you're not, I don't know. Anyway, I'm just saying, if you can't find it, it doesn't mean it's out there. It just means that it's not between covers yet. I've been trying to buy secondhand equipment as well, because that's something that you pointed out in one of your videos, and I just hadn't thought about it. I don't know why. I used to buy like secondhand equipment, and then like I didn't think about buying all the little accessories secondhand as well. And I found some websites that like they haven't got what I want on yet, but I'm refreshing them every day to be like, when is this? So that's interesting from a YouTube perspective, I guess. It's like, just buy a secondhand mic.
Well, especially because a lot nowadays tech is something that because it does get upgraded so frequently, like really, really fast, there are so many things that you can buy secondhand that are still relatively new and kind of current.
Yeah.
I mean, I buy all of my lenses secondhand because on this website, Camera Jungle, they have everything. They literally have everything I could possibly need. And if they don't, it comes in quite quickly because people are, their turnover of equipment is quite high. Because especially if you buy a lens and you're not quite sure about it and then you send it back. I mean, I bought a Fuji camera as well, bought that secondhand, bought the lens secondhand, and it's a beautiful camera. Even phones now, all of my phones are secondhand. And I think phones are something people do worry about, but because it's becoming quite trendy, the whole sort of secondhand tech thing, you've got so many companies, like in the US you have Trademore, even in the UK I got a phone from giffgaff for secondhand.
Yeah. It's so good. I'd always had secondhand phones, and then about a year ago I bet the bullet, saved up, and I got a Fair phone. So they're like the modular phones and you take them apart. So a few of the reviews of the old models were quite like, but then the reviews of the ones I have had now was pretty good. So I got it and it's actually pretty decent. I'll probably make a whole review of it at some point, but I've been really happy with it. And I think that basically, I think my ethos with those kind of tech things is like, if it works, like only if it's like 30% worse than the other thing I was buying, then that's fine. I can live with that. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't need to have everything and do everything. I think I can live with a little bit of a downgrade in functionality as long as like it's ethical. But sometimes if it's 70% worse, then you can't use it and it's hard. You still have to do your job.
I know you're not as active on like Instagram, for example, as you are on YouTube. Do you find that your use of that app has changed because of the phone you're using, or do you feel like it's just very similar? Or
I think, to be honest, like the video functions on it aren't incredible. They're fine, and I've done a lot of lives. I did like a project last year where I did 24 hours of poetry writing for National Poetry Day. So I went live for half an hour every hour for 24 hours, and it was totally fine. It made it through that, so it was fine. But I think, yeah, it's not as good as like the new iPhone, like the newest release, but I wouldn't have bought that anyway, and it was twice the price of this phone. So do you know what I mean? It depends what you would have bought, because I was buying like quite low spec old iPhones. It functions the same way as an iPhone 6 might. Do you know what I mean? But no, it's not like an iPhone 11. I don't even know what number we're at now with iPhones, but you know what I mean? It's like functions the same as what I was using before. So it hasn't really made that much of a difference for me.
That's good. I don't think there were enough reviews of like just people using things like Fairphone and kind of talking about their experience, because a lot of people do ask me about the Fairphone, but because I have a phone, I'm not going to go out and get it just to review it.
Yeah. Maybe I'll make one at some point.
Yeah, well, you should, because people want a better option, something like a Fairphone, but they also want to know that it's going to serve them well.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not a tech bro, so I don't care about a lot of stuff they talk about in the reviews. I'm like, I don't know what that means, and I'm guessing that I won't care about it when I get the phone. So it might be useful, because I'm like, are you just a normal person who uses Instagram and checks your email on your phone and likes to take pictures when you're out? This is how it is for that. So yeah, I think sometimes they can be quite harsh in reviews when I'm like, I think you're overestimating how much I really care about this. It's just like, I take a wine recommendation from a mate, but I wouldn't take it from a wine specialist, because I'm like, I can't taste that. Like my tongue does not have that functionality. Whatever notes you're describing, not worth me paying for it because I can't taste it. You know, it's the same kind of thing. I'm glad that we're experts on it, but an expert isn't always that useful.
No, I completely agree. And that's why things like climate change and reading about books, that's why it's good to ask someone who likes to read a lot and is not necessarily an expert in climate change, because these books are the most helpful thing, because we are just normal people that want to learn more, and my followers are you normal people? Mostly normal people who just want to learn more. What is a normal person? An everyday person who wants to learn, more about climate change. So it's like, it's good. But as you said, it's good to learn read ones that are helpful but not terrifying, because we don't want to panic. Although we should be panicking, but in a productive and helpful way.
Yes. Concern, not panic, maybe. Might be the word.
Concern. If you were to suggest any of the books that you have recommended to read first, would you say any, or would you just say whichever one speaks to you?
Whichever one speaks to you, I would probably still say this. because, and also
Well,
it's an audiobook. It's only 5 hours and it's read beautifully, so you can like read it when you're like kind of just like walking around or like in tidbits. So if you're scared, or it's really like segmented into small chunks. So if you find it intimidating to sit down and read about climate change, then the audiobook of this is great. Also though, I found the XR book, what's it called? This Is Not a Drill.
This Is Not a Drill. Oh yeah.
They're tiny essays, and they're only like, each essay is like 2 pages long, and they're all from different perspectives. It's all pretty diverse. There's like from anything from like a firefighter who put out one of the like wildfires, to like long-term campaigners and normal people. I think that's a really good place to start, because if you're concerned about a particular topic, or you don't understand like why people want to get arrested and like all of those, like it answers so many questions and fills out a lot of the kind of media's critique of Extinction Rebellion. And I'm not part of Extinction Rebellion, but I do think it's interesting, and I think it's actually a really good place to start because it's so short and the essays are really tiny. So if you're not really a massive reader, then that's a good one. That's
a good recommendation. We won't get into XR right now.
Okay.
Because there are lots of things to say about them.
There's more details required. But the book they made is quite good.
But the book, yeah, definitely. Okay, we're getting on a bit, so maybe like to end, I'll ask you, why did you start making sort of climate change videos in the first place? Like, what made you sort of start to panic, and why did you then decide to take action and talk about it online?
So I think I had like a bit of a big realization, which, you know, ironically, I'd flown to Iceland, and we were going on what I believed was like a fun day trip on a coach to see loads of different waterfalls, which we did, but we also saw a glacier that had been melted, and like they had pictures of how it was like 10 years ago and then how it was now. And for some reason I had read books on the climate before, and like I'd thought about it a bit like during my degree, and then like it had basically got packaged up into a small part of my brain near the back. Do you know what I mean? There's no real reason. There wasn't like a reason for me to abandon those feelings or those worries. Sometimes things like your brain just sorts things into urgent and non-urgent, and it had naturally gone into a non-urgent category of my brain. And then that, just standing in front of that and seeing the magnitude of it, I was like, oh shit. And then also I think like you shouldn't have to have that kind of experience to do it, and I don't, you know, that happened by accident. But then I think also like with my channel's always been quite peppy and upbeat and silly, and I didn't want to lose that because I wouldn't want to make the channel, otherwise I don't want to have like a serious science channel, or like a science, like a channel that's just about campaigning or like doom. So I realized that actually like the way that I wanted to incorporate it into my channel, because I feel like it's a good way to not trick people into talking about the climate, but if I have a channel that I already had where people subscribed for fun and then they accidentally got a bit of reality as well, that's cool, rather than people who like, you know, like there's always different people that you can catch in a weird way with like wardrobe videos and stuff. And I also think that I wanted to make videos on it occasionally on my channel, and intentionally not every one, because for me that's more sustainable emotionally. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the sustainable physically, like things that you can buy that are sustainable, but what is sustainable emotionally for you? And I think like making one video a month about it for me was the most way that I knew that I could keep doing it, because as soon as I read half of The Inhabitable Earth and then was like, I get it, David, that's enough, say no more, and I read other stuff, you know, as soon as you start really believing it instead of just knowing it, you want to do everything. You're like, I'm going to change my whole life, I'm going to give up everything, and it's cool that people do, but sometimes that's not possible, and it wasn't possible for me. So I kind of thought like, how can I carry on this long term? So instead of like panicking for 1 month and changing everything about my life and making it this kind of superficial thing, how can I long term slowly switch my life around and also bring people along with me? I can do like 1 or 2 videos a month and have that as a separate series on my channel that appears sometimes, but then I also get to do all the silly stuff because that's what we're here for. And also like people do need to switch off from the world sometimes. Like for me, I think I'm quite good at making this the kind of content that people can just switch off for, and that's fine. That's my function in the world, and I'm okay with it. So I think it's like playing to your strengths as well. I'm just not a researcher. I'm not like, oh my god, like Shell Bizzle, her videos where she talks about all the nuances of packaging and stuff, it's incredible and we need it. And I'm so like in awe of that kind of thing, but I just know that I'm not suited to that kind of research, and I don't have a degree in it like she does. And the same with like you and like working out these different kind of lifestyle swaps. I'm like, my brain doesn't work like that. So much of that doesn't occur to me in the way that it does to other people. So.
But that's why community over competition is always such a beautiful thing, because everyone fills a different, you know, niche and perspective and little corner of the internet where we can, you know, if you watch everyone or you know, take bits from different channels, then you get something like more of a full whole picture of what's going on.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's kind of that thing where you can look at all the stuff there is to do and be like, oh my God, I can't do it. And it's like, you don't need to do it all. You know, you don't need to, like, it's, again, you're part of an ecosystem of change. And in the same way that I could be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 I think you should maybe like not eat meat as much. But if you actually want some like really great recipes, go to Imi's channel because she knows how to make recipes. Do you know what I mean? There's stuff like that it's like, you can feed stuff into each other. You don't need to like tackle a whole problem on your own.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspective, things you liked, that you didn't like, your books, the things that you're going, like, it's great. It's so nice to talk to people who are just get interested and then how they got interested and then what they do with that, because you'd be surprised. I mean, I never intended this to be my job, and it just happened. As I think it always
does. As all happy accidents do. Some of the best things aren't planned.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're interested in checking out Leena's video, I'll put them down below, because you should check out both of them, because both of them are really good. I really enjoyed seeing what you did, and I also really enjoyed seeing how Craig edited the video to make it actually watchable, because we chatted on for
what
such
a hero,
a long time.
A hero.
What a hero. But yeah, thank you very much for chatting to me. Everyone should check out Leena's channel, but we'll talk about this more after we get off the phone. But yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Do you know what? After your marriage video, even more so, I was thinking I don't want to move to this country, because we're getting married in the US.
Yes.
So not only am I not marrying really my partner, I'm marrying the US government.
Yeah, do you really want to get into bed with
even
that?
Worse. I really hope you enjoyed today's video with me just talking to Leena about all things zero waste, climate change and books. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more videos like this, talking to other people about their experience trying to live a more sustainable or zero waste lifestyle, or simply trying to panic positively. Okay, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys very soon.